Welcome to another episode of Questions with LA. I am your intrepid host, LA Marzulli. If you have a question for us, shoot us an email at questions@lamarzulli.net. We are trying to get to all of them. It takes time because no matter how many I do, the queue gets longer and longer. But we will try to get to yours. And we'll be getting into your questions today. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Folks, LA Marzulli, we have a new product from the folks at BioTrust. I'm going to give this baby a try. Look, I've got stubborn belly fat. A lot of you out there have the same problem. Support balanced glucose uptake and metabolism in healthy individuals. This is pretty cool. Support normal insulin activity in healthy individuals. I have not yet tried this. I'm getting on it. I will report back to you. We try all of the stuff that our sponsors give us. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've got some stubborn belly fat. I would love to see it go away. So I'm going to give this a shot. Anyway, here's a further word from our sponsor. Excess belly fat has been deemed the most dangerous fat of them all as it's linked to so many health issues. The reason being excess belly fat grows deep in the abdominal cavity and puts pressure on some of the body's most vital organs. That's one of the reasons why myself, along with so many people, are beginning to turn to this amazing new substance, which is thoughtfully formulated with science-backed ingredients that promote reduced fat storage, help to speed up the breakdown of fat, support weight management, reduce cravings, and boost metabolism. Folks, the best part I love is that you can get 51% off for the rest of the month or until they sell out, whichever comes first. Get yours now by going to trimwithla.com. Once again, that's trimwithla.com. Trimwithla.com. I'm going to give this 30 days. I'll report back to you and we'll see what it does. I am LA Marzulli coming to you from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains. And let's get right into it. This is from Jeff. Does petrified wood have any significance? I live in the hill country of Texas, not known for petrified wood. I keep finding different types and pieces in the same area. Thanks. You know, Jeff, I don't know. That's a really great question. I would suggest going to a local archaeologist and show him what you've got. Don't give him anything, but show it to him and see what his take is on it and kind of go from there. Usually a local archaeologist will kind of know what's in the area. Even though it's the party line, they'll know about things like this. So check that out, and hopefully that'll answer your question. This is from DL. Someone sent me this. I wondered if you have seen it. Hillary Clinton's email looking for Nephilim in the body resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh. So this is a Freedom of Information Act. I remember when I saw this, I about fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe it. But then I took a step back and looked at it. So what this really is, let's say why Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Via the Freedom of Information Act, I write to Hillary Clinton and I ask her, dear, Madam Clinton, is there any truth about the Gilgamesh tomb that allegedly was uncovered during the Iraq War? That's all that is. In other words, it's a question. Anyone can pen that. It has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton somehow looking into it or talking about it. This is a Freedom of Information request that could have been written by who knows whom. So that's how that works. And if you don't know how it works, when you see that, most people immediately go, oh, Hillary Clinton's looking into this. No, someone's writing to Hillary Clinton, trying to find out about it. Let's continue. This is from Matt. Happy Resurrection Day, LA. My brother wants to get a Bible to start reading on his own. He asked me what the best one to get is. I have the NIV. I think it's okay, but I haven't read others much either. I looked online. It's a bit confusing. Some are literally word for word, hard to understand because we don't talk like that. And of course, that's the King James. What Bible do you suggest for someone just starting? That's a really good question. The NIV is good. I like the Amplified or the New King James. I like the Amplified because it takes and especially if you're going side by side, got a Bible right over there on my desk, which shows the Amplified version and then the New King James. So you can read them side by side. And that's a great Bible to look at because you can read New King James first, and then when you read the Amplified, it amplifies what you just read. So let's say instead of a sentence that I'll just use this as an arbitrary, simple example. John got into his car and went to Susie's house. That's, let's say, one. That's the typical sentence that you would read, something like that. In, let's say, the New King James. So the Amplified version would read something like this. John got into his deluxe SL 500 Mercedes-Benz that had been restored. See the way I just amplified that? So it's not his car. Now it's a red car. It's an SL 500. They amplify things. And so that's what I like about that Bible that sits. It's in the studio here. And I do a lot of stuff online also where I'll just look for the verse of a day. Sometimes the Lord has me just sit in like one verse for like a week or two and just ruminate on that one verse. Now, 43 years ago when I became a Christian, that's not what I was doing. I was reading several chapters from the Old Testament and one chapter from the New, or I would read a whole book sometimes at one sitting. So it's kind of all over the map. Hope that helps you. This is from Pamela. Just wondering if you would ever come to Phoenix, Arizona. I'd love to come to Phoenix, Arizona. I watch you online, and I'm totally fascinated with your discoveries and truth you bring out from the Bible. Well, thank you, Pamela. I appreciate that. I believe what you say about the Nephilim for a number of years, but the few Christians I've talked about it don't believe fallen angels have the equipment to have relations with human women. So I'm sticking to what I know is true, but you certainly have way more knowledge about it than I do. So nowhere in the Bible, in the biblical prophetic narrative, does it talk about that angels cannot procreate. It just says we will be like the angels, neither given in marriage or there's no marriage contract in heaven. But it doesn't mean that when we go up, we lose our equipment, if you get what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you do. What I'm trying to get at here is this, that the sons of God took wives. They saw the daughters, the human daughters of mankind. And if we don't get Genesis 3:15, which talks about the seed war, and thank you once again, Elder Brother Gary Stearman, for bringing that to all of our attention decades ago, then we don't understand the rest of the Bible. It's a seed war. The seed of the dragon will be at enmity, at war with the seed of the woman. The one coming from the seed of the woman will crush the dragon's head. We know that for a fact. And then Genesis 6, the whole seed war erupts. If we don't understand Genesis 3:15 and the implications, when we get to Genesis 6, we're confused. And so you get people like well-meaning friends, oh, angels can't procreate. Well, show me where that is. What about in the book of Jude, where it states emphatically that the angels of heaven left their first estate, did the unthinkable. Now they're in gloomy dungeons. In a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah, one after strange flesh. We are talking about the seed war. And it's just unfortunate that people don't get that. This is from Arthur. I've touched about this before, but we keep getting emails from people. What about the 18, it's not month, it's year, 18 and a half year lunar cycle? What's the deal with that? Well, that's a really good question. We've discussed this numerous times here before, but briefly, the moon comes in like this. You've got the lunar standstill every 18 and a half year in that cycle. And that's going to happen in 2025. What's interesting about this, if you go back a couple of thousand years, people didn't know this. Even in Europe, people didn't know about it. Native Americans have no oral tradition about knowing about the 18 and a half year lunar cycle. So in other words, there's a cycle where the moon comes up, it rises and it sets. That's day one. Then it shifts. It rises and it sets. Then it shifts again. It rises and it sets. Well, if you're back, let's say 4,000 years ago, and you don't know this, and you and I arrive at any site on the planet, let's just go, since we talked about Ohio, we'll talk about the Great Circle Mountain or the Octagon Mountain. So we put a rock in our center, our observation center, and then when the moon comes up, we put a stake. So we've got 2 points of reference. Oh, there's the moon, bam, stake number one. It sets over here, boom, stake number two. Well, we do this for days on end, but we don't know that it's an 18 and a half year lunar cycle. We don't know where in that 18 and a half year lunar cycle we started to look at the data. We don't know that. We have no idea. And then how do you crunch the data? Data, you say data, I say data. How do we crunch the data? How do we keep track of it on a deer hide or a bunch of deer hides with little pinpoints, and how do we know, oh look, we're back to where we were 18 and a half years ago? The Book of Enoch, which is a pseudepigraphical book, not found in our canon, but Jude does quote it, which means that the early church fathers certainly knew about the Book of Enoch. The Ethiopian Bible, that Book of Enoch actually precedes the Book of Genesis. Now, people make an argument, King James only, and I understand all that, and that's a great translation, and we love it. What did people do before 1611? I'll just leave it at that. Do I read the King James? Absolutely. But I read a lot of translations. We talked about that earlier in the show. What about the New King James and then the Amplified side by side? That gives you a pretty clear, good clear picture of what's going on. So the bottom line is, if you don't know it's an 18 and a half year lunar cycle, then you have no idea. The Book of Enoch tells us that the fallen angel, Sariel, handed this information to mankind. Hope that helps. This is from Samantha. Today I watched some videos of interviews with William Tompkins about UFOs, aliens, reptilians, and Nordics. I found potholes in his stories and great exaggerations. I don't believe him. What do you think? Well, I don't know who this guy is, and I'm not going to disparage anyone on this show. We just don't do that. And he's welcome to come on here and talk about what he believes. There are two schools of thought, I will tell you this. There's the one school which believes that we are being visited by a highly advanced race of extraterrestrials. This is what's promulgated on Ancient Aliens and people who believe in the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Then there are people like myself which believe that these are interdimensional, extra-dimensional entities which are coming here from the second heaven, i.e. they are fallen angels. They are masquerading as aliens. Look, and I get this, there's emails that cross my desk all the time, and we're looking at trillions of galaxies out there. No one knows where we are in this universe. No one knows what this is. No one knows where consciousness resides. Nobody. People say, well, it's in your brain. Show me. They don't know where it is. All we know is that consciousness interfaces somehow with this three-dimensional bodysuit in which I find myself in as I speak to you. It's pretty amazing. It works most of the time. I can play piano. I can speak. I can hear. I can see. It's amazing. But where does L.A. Marzulli reside? Where do you reside in this little three-dimensional biological suit that we find ourselves in? So there's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to. I certainly don't, which is why I believe in the biblical prophetic narrative, because it provides a thread of prophecy from Genesis to the book of Revelation that talks about a priori, in advance, what will happen. There's no other book like it on the planet. So I'm going with that. I'm going with the fact that his birth and crucifixion were prophesied thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, before crucifixion was ever invented. They talk about my hands and feet are pierced. What do you do with something like that? And the bulls of Bashan, right, which is a definite reference to the Nephilim. Very, very interesting, but I digress. This is from Elijah. Hello, and thank you for all that you do. Thank you, Elijah. You, along with several others' explanation of the unspoken biblical history has helped me tremendously in understanding the Bible. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Elijah. I've noticed that you said that all questions will be answered, but my previous submission was skipped over, so I'll resubmit it. Since DNA testing has become very popular, several companies have added Neanderthal to the results. What, in your opinion, is Neanderthal DNA? Could it have anything to do with the Nephilim incursions? This is from Raymond Miller. So Elijah is not. This is from Raymond. Sorry, Raymond, got the name wrong. So Raymond, I'm not sure what Neanderthal DNA is. I really don't know. It's not, it's found and it keeps coming up in some human beings. This is a question for Gary Stearman. So I'm just going to defer to Gary. Or maybe Mondo Gonzalez might have an answer to that. Interesting. I don't know what it is. Are these primitive humans? Are they an offshoot of a Nephilim? Are they the descendants of Cain that eventually died out? I don't know. I don't know. There's so many questions, and we don't have answers, and stock answers aren't going to do it. But Neanderthal were here. Do they just have a genetic disposition like the elongated skulls in Paracas? We don't see people with elongated heads walking around anymore. This is not the result of cranial deformation. They were here. This was genetic manipulation. This was genetic that was in the actual Paracas skulls. It was something that was genetic. So in the same way, could Cro-Magnon be a genetic anomaly? Certainly could be. Could it have something to do with dark forces, Nephilim? Absolutely. Hope that helps your answer. Thanks so much, LA. I'm one of the many who appreciate what you do. Well, thank you, Pam. I appreciate your kind words. I'd really be interested in hearing your take on the Grand Canyon. We've had reports from the Grand Canyon. I've talked about this before, where a gentleman is near the Grand Canyon and he shoots a deer and he follows the blood trail and he comes up to a fence and the deer has hopped over the fence and he goes over the fence, and within 5 minutes he's surrounded by people in black SUVs with, what are you doing here? Get out of here, blah, blah, blah. So there's something going on with the Grand Canyon. Apparently, allegedly, there's certain parts that you can't go to. I've never been. It's on the bucket list. But there's only so much time and so much money one has, and have to pick our places where we go to and film. Anyway, let me get to this one, and this is from Thomas. Dear LA, everyone in my home loves to watch ghost hunting shows. I think we talked about this before, and shows about the Nephilim and sometimes scary movies. We know we are protected through Jesus and the Holy Spirit. However, do you think it's wrong to watch these kinds of programs? I have answered this before. And I will just say this, that I'm very selective what I watch. People say, LA, why haven't you watched Nefarious? I don't need to take that into my spirit. I already know what the other side is doing. It's a great movie. People need to watch it. I don't. We kind of live and breathe this stuff all day long, so I don't want to take any more into my spirit. The Mark of the Beast, this is from Eric. I think we've answered this before too, so I'm kind of repeating. I apologize for that. We lost our place in the queue, so I just want to make sure everyone gets covered. What should we be looking for, and how will we know the Mark of the Beast? I believe the Mark of the Beast has something to do with the implants that we took out. That's in our Watchers series. You can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net and see it for yourself. Very, very interesting stuff there. So, this is the one on Nefarious, and I think that's basically it. This one I don't remember. So the husband, this is from Julie. He works in the woods, and he took this picture. Now you can see right here something is kind of there, and I'm not sure. Let me show that to you again. In my opinion, it looks like a craft that is materializing, but I don't know. It's very interesting. Whatever this person saw, is very unnerving. And of course, the husband left the scene immediately. I would call it Close Encounters of the Second Kind, because that's very close, but I'm not sure what you're looking at. Last one today, and this, of course, is from Jim, and he thanks us for being here. And he talks about our film on UFOs. In fact, what he's talking about here is Jim and Carolyn Rankin talking about Colonel Hill. And when Carolyn asked Colonel Hill, when you saw this entity and you tried to communicate, this is from the Roswell crash. This is why it was pulled out of the earlier film, and we've kept it in the hard drive, and we're using it in Roswell Revisited, part 1 and 2. You'll see that there in that film where Carolyn Rankin is talking about her interview with Colonel Hill. And Colonel Hill was OSS, the forerunner of the CIA, and Hill was an intelligence officer, an interrogator. He's flown to Roswell, New Mexico within 48 hours after the crash and the retrieval of the bodies. One of them is still alive. He tries to communicate with it, and he can't. But according to Hill's testimony, the thing has 6 fingers. So do with that what you will. I do find it interesting. Thanks so much for your questions. We do try to get to all of them, and thank you for your patience. If you've got a question, shoot us an email at questions@lamarzulli.net. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, check out our website, lamarzulli.net. Further evidence is there. We're working on Roswell. It's number 7 and 8, even though we're calling it part 1 and 2, but there'll be 9 films altogether in the UFO film series, and we're going to get these out. There's a pre-sale right now on those, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and you can order the hard copy DVDs, or wait till it comes on our streaming site, streaming.lamarzulli.net. Folks, right now there are 27 films that you can go and watch. 27 films that you can go and watch. Are you kidding me? You could spend a lot of time there, well over 30 hours of films. So we are on the trail. My business partner has flown down from his undisclosed location somewhere deep in the heart of the California redwood forest. And Gil and I are here working feverishly to try to finish up 1 and 2, Roswell 1 and Roswell 2. You're going to want to check these out. There's so much information. Exoneration. Why? Because we believe we have exonerated. These films will exonerate Jesse Marcel Sr. and Jesse Marcel Jr., the Marcel name in general. It was not a weather balloon, folks. We actually went to the debris field. We found some very interesting artifacts, which we'll be talking about in the up and coming days. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you here next time for when I attempt and try with all my due diligence to answer your questions. Thanks for watching.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection. Late this afternoon, a bulletin from New Mexico suggested that the widely publicized mystery of the flying saucers may soon be solved. Army Air Force officers reported that one of the strange discs had been found and inspected sometime last week. Our correspondents in Los Angeles and Chicago have been in contact with Army officials endeavoring to obtain all possible late information. Joe Wilson reports to us now from Chicago.
The Army may be getting to the bottom of all this talk about the so-called flying saucer. As a matter of fact, the 509th Atomic Bomb Group headquarters at Roswell, New Mexico, reports that it has received one of the discs which landed on a ranch outside Roswell. The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brizzell was the man who discovered the saucer. Colonel William Blanchard of the Roswell Air Base refuses to give details of what the flying disc looks like.